Want to know what your dog is thinking?
Have a challenging dog behavior you need help with?
The Dish on Dogs is your source for all your canine questions.
Improve your relationship with your dog and deepen your understanding of your furry friend. Right here on the Dish on Dogs. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Dish on Dogs. I'm your host, Mike Gould, mayor of Houndstown USA, home to the happiest dogs on earth. Joining me today is the always lovely, always passionate, always charming, always sensitive, Jackie Bondanza. Welcome to the show, Jackie.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that intro.
Well, you've been much less
more positive
recalcitrant
lately.
and much less truculent lately.
Oh, thanks so much.
So let's talk about Houndstown USA, home to the... Why is it the home to the happiest dogs on earth? I keep saying it and saying it. I know it is, because I see the dogs coming and going, and they are happy dogs.
They are.
Why is that, Jackie?
Well, I think it's because we have purposely made our facilities, Houndstown facilities, places for dogs to be dogs, meaning they're allowed to come in 6, 7 in the morning when their parents drop them off, and they're placed in these groups, these natural packs of dogs of the same size, temperament, energy level, personality, and they just play all day long. They're allowed to be dogs here at Houndstown, and I think that's something that separates us, from the rest of our competitors, and it gives us a really unique position as a pet care franchise, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, are the 5 differentiators, the 5 Houndstown differentiators.
Why Houndstown USA is home to the happiest dogs on earth. Yep. Why we've been able to successfully take care of over 1.5 million dogs in a safe and healthy dog environment. Absolutely. I like to say we kind of dehumanize these things.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Let's say that's just, I just came up with that in my human brain. We dehumanized it. So let's talk a little bit. So you want to talk about franchising? I
think we should talk about franchising and tell everybody why we think Houndstown, or why we know Houndstown is so fantastic, not only for the dogs and for our customers, but as a business opportunity and a business venture, because our business is growing extremely rapidly. Yeah. Just in the past month, we've signed on 3 new franchisees. Last year in 2019, we brought on 9 new franchisees in 9 different brand new markets. This year we'll be opening 7 to 10 new locations. Right. So we're really, really growing and moving and shaking. And, I see us just catapulting into this brand new kind of space and into all these brand new markets. So I want to talk about why Houndstown has had this success. You started this business 20 years ago after a storied career in canine management. And I think this was sort of a natural extension of your dog management career in law enforcement. So talk quickly, I think, about why you started Houndstown. Right.
So I started Houndstown, as you said. I've worked in law enforcement pretty much my whole life. And in the early 80s, I became one of the founding members of the New York City Police Department's Canine unit. So a lot of times people ask me, they're like, Mike, you must love dogs. And my answer is always the same. It was really my disdain for human beings that drew me to working with dogs. And this is the truth. And I say this with all due respect. So in New York City Police Department in the late 70s, early 80s, crime was really rampant. If you think Central Park, you couldn't even walk into Central Park in New York City. The crime rate, they literally closed it at nighttime. Graffiti, and it was just a mess. And in the New York City Police Department, we had human partners. And this is kind of what truthfully shaped my whole kind of view of dogs from that point of view. It wasn't my love of dogs. I had dogs when I was little, like most people have a dog, a family pet. But it wasn't until I was driving around the streets of New York City with my human partner. And we would, if you think about a human partner, it's like a marriage, right? So we're under very stressful situations. We were arguing over whether to have Chinese food one night or should we get Italian food.
That sounds super stressful.
Right.
Yeah.
So right. Then it would be peppered with, sheer drama, right? Crime-related drama. But for the most part, we're just driving around 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day. We many times commuted together. So my point of the matter was there came a time in 1982 or 83, and I always, just like I always tell people, we never know what any human is really thinking, right? You never know. It could be your own spouse. you don't know their secret thoughts in their mind and how they're going to do something when you're needed to be done. So in 1982 or 83, I was involved in a very sporadic a shooting. You know, we were involved. There was a robbery. It was a whole very dramatic thing. And what happened was my partner at the time didn't react the way I wanted him to react. He kind of froze, you know, and it was a very wild shootout. Let's just say that. I think 25 shots were fired. It was in broad daylight at the foot of the 59th Street Bridge in Queens. And it happened in nanoseconds. We were just driving, probably arguing over where we were going to eat. And in the next second, we were involved in this wild shootout. It was really crazy. As I said, I think 23 shots were fired. Make a long story short, my partner froze. He just froze. And he started firing rounds into the ground instead of what he should have been. So the point was that shape. I said, I can't do this anymore. So there just happened to be a notification. They were developing a canine unit, a pilot canine unit in the New York City Police Department. And that was my first, I filled out the application. And
so that was your way out, essentially.
I said, I can't do this. I can't work. I'd rather honestly, and I don't know how this sounds. It wasn't an indictment on my partner. It just was in that moment.
You wanted something different. So you right? So you took the opportunity to start working with the canine.
Right.
Developing the canine unit.
Yes, right. So we were we worked in the different parks. So they'd send us, there was only 5 of us or 10 of us at the time, and they'd put us in parks and through the 5 boroughs of the city. So obviously Central Park, Flushing Meadow Park, every borough has a park. And
so you and your canine partner were tasked with kind of policing the parks.
The parks, which was high crime at that time.
Okay.
Super high crime.
So, and how did you feel this transition was to having this new canine partner? Was it easier to communicate? Did you feel more that you trusted the dog more?
It was a sigh of relief because the dog doesn't, you can easily understand what the dog is going to do and when it's going to do it.
Right, and you have more, you essentially have more control and a better relationship.
I had a much greater trust level in a dog than I did a human. Because
Interesting.
Humans are unpredictable. Dogs are very predictable. Very predictable, as long as you know what, try to understand what's motivating them. So to answer the question, my life changed from that point forward. My life changed dramatically, and my relationship with dogs and animals changed. I had a greater respect for them. And then obviously we went through a great deal of training, and dogs, their sense of smell is 250,000 times greater than humans. So they're actually do extrasensory. They have extrasensory perception, and they do things that are supernatural. They're not really, but they seem to be. So with that said, fast forward, I've worked in law enforcement. I've done everything you could possibly do with police canines, every type of scent detection, bomb detection, drug detection, cadaver detection. Did all those things, and that was my life for a very long time. And then when I was getting ready to retire, 9/11 occurred, right? So, and I said, I was just an observer of animals. I didn't go to animal behavioral school. I just watched dogs and watched my police dog, more importantly, and how he reacted to certain things and what his capabilities were. So that's what motivated me to say, and my dog a police dog, if you think about it, whether you agree with it or not, they live a dog's life because they get to hunt something. They get to hunt humans. They get to hunt humans, find them, sometimes bite them, sometimes not. So when you think about that, just letting a dog do its natural task of hunting prey. So it was just fascinating that I could go into a park or the woods, 10,000-acre woods, and release a dog, and it could it could be a missing child, by the way. It doesn't necessarily mean criminals, but it could find something that there's no other technology could duplicate. And when I started understanding that dogs were a greater technology than any technology, a NASA engineer could not develop a device that could smell things like a dog. I find that fascinating today. There's nothing that enhances odor like a dog's odor. So I was fascinated by dogs. and I still am today as fascinated. So during Ground Zero, I wanted to have a place that dogs could be dogs because they were being overworked. Right? So dogs at Ground Zero, what I mean, the site of 9/11, people were pushing dogs unintentionally. They needed to find victims, right, and potential survivors. So they pushed these animals to the point where the dogs kind of broke down. And again, we talked in another episode, it looked like they were depressed, but they just were really overworked.
Okay.
So
then, you found Houndstown around the same time as the events of 9/11, in part because you wanted a place that a dog could be a dog.
Yes.
And so you rented a small factory space out here on Long Island where Houndstown was founded, obviously.
1,200 square feet, yes.
And Houndstown became a place for fellow law enforcement officers and other people participating in the rescue efforts. It became a place for them to leave their dogs when they were also, had to be out of their house for sometimes days and weeks at a time, right? So there was this need for reliable and trustworthy pet care in your community. So you listen to the kind of the demand and the need in your area.
Right. It was like making a playground for a child. Just think about it. If you had lived in a community, every community has a playground somewhere, if not a field. So this was lacking. And more importantly, it shaped my opinion about breed discrimination, right? So we had these highly trained dogs that were predominantly aggressive at times, German Shepherds, Rottweilers, and I started grouping them together kind of as an experiment because I didn't get any formal training in this. This was just so I put some dogs together, and ironically, and I wasn't sure how it would go because, we talked before about leash aggression and so forth. So I experimented early on in grouping dogs and frankly, without incident, by the way. Was there an occasional little dog fight here, a little skirmish? Of course. But that's when I realized that it doesn't matter what breed of dog it is. It's how your understanding of the dog behavior and not interfering. So humans, I always found, interfered. When we did searches in the police department with humans, I had to clear them out. I didn't want humans with me because their odor, their behavior would distract the dog from its task. And that's when I realized that was when I began to formulate this concept of this fully interactive Houndstown.
And I think you always describe it as, you started out by offering not only overnight boarding, but daycare for dogs. And this was 20 years ago when people thought you were crazy for thinking that people were going to pay you money to watch their dogs during the day, right?
It was pretty unheard of. There was different versions of doggy daycare started out west in California, but they breed discriminate. They didn't understand the concept at all.
Right.
But so the notion of doggy daycare was, as I said, somebody might started leaving the dog if they went to play around the golf for 4 hours or somebody went shopping. But it was not a typical experience. It was more of a luxury then. Now, Houndstown and doggy daycare is a necessity. Right. It's part of our life, where I'm seeing now companies are starting to pay for doggy daycare for their employees, just like child daycare.
Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about 5 things that make Houndstown different than other pet care facilities, the main one, number 1, is your extensive background and experience in understanding the animal brain. And that really informs everything that we do at Houndstown. And I think it's a very unique and different approach that no one else can really take claim to. I mean, so Houndstown was born out of, over 30 years of experience and really understanding dogs and what their needs were. And that has informed the rollout of the rest of our system when it comes to how our daily operations, to how we interact with dogs at our facilities, how we group them, our build out costs, our breed discrimination policies. It is a foundation for everything we do.
Right. And I think that you or somebody had said, we build the facilities from the dog's perspective. So I always say...
I think you said that.
I may have said that? No. Okay, but the point is
18 inches off the ground.
Right, because dogs live in a different plateau. They don't have thumbs. They don't have all the things that we have. So we take that into consideration. And as I always say to new customers coming, I always reinforce the concept that the customer is always right, in which the human puts a big smile on their face. But I then say, The customer is the dog.
Right.
Humans, this notion that the customer is always right, frankly, in our business is really not so. Customers are frequently wrong.
Customers are frequently wrong about their dogs.
Right. Not intentionally, not because they're stupid, because they're too damn smart. So our job and part of our business model, the differentiator, is that we educate our consumers to make them. Now, they don't have to believe us, and we might not even. We offer a very straightforward approach. Our business is very straightforward. We don't exploit human beings. We don't ask our customer if they want to pay for an ice cream cone. We don't ask them if they want us to read a storybook to them. We don't say, do you want the color television in this suite? That'll cost you more money. We don't tell them we're going to charge them $2 to put a pill in their food. That's exploitation, in my view, and it pisses me off.
Right.
Actually.
So one of our other differentiators is that we keep things extremely simple. Simple for our customers. We try to keep things as simple as possible for our franchisees when it comes to build out. And so let's talk a little bit about build out, which is one of another big differentiator. Our cost of entry is much, much lower than a lot of the other pet care franchises out there. What is the reason for that in your mind?
Well, right. So the dog's needs are simple, right? We've talked about this over and over again. We do make aesthetically pleasing to the human eye facilities that are bright, they're fun. So fun is also a component to what we say. So if you're going to identify, say, human words, simplicity is number one.
Yep.
We have a simple business model. We have a simple daycare program. We have a simple boarding program. It's not complicated.
Right.
And humans have a tendency of complicating things. Our build out is as simple as it can possibly be, meeting all the zoning requirements and so forth. Of course, humans, i.e. zoning and bureaucrats, make this difficult.
Right. Well, we're always up against that challenge, but let's focus on the build-out part of it. We understand we make things complicated, right? So we have worked hard to make things as simple as possible. Okay. When it comes to the build-out, you've created this proprietary method of building our townhomes and suites that are much more cost-effective than, say, buying prefabricated kennels for $2,000 and $3,000 a pop. And the reason for that is because when you open the facility, you just had to invent your own way of making the townhomes. It's not because you set out to create an affordable pet care franchise system, right? So it's just we're backing into this because of the way you started the business initially. Right.
So going to the build out, we use simple products that can be found at your local building supplier. So the first 10 places that I built out were things that products that you buy at your. Now here's the thing. Now when we start to include, we do our build outs now. Humans complicate it. So we have building designers and construction engineers describing things that are not necessary for dogs at all. So again, we're always trying to tweak this and say you don't need Italian marble for your dog. They couldn't care less.
Right. And I think in our human world, there's a correlation between people thinking that if something is more expensive, it means that it's better. Right. And in our perspective, that is not true. So if you go with a competitor of ours and it costs you $1 million to build out a space, our philosophy is, why would you pay $1 million for something that you can get for a third of that cost? When at the end of the day, we're all charging relatively the same price for our services, right? So our average unit volume in our stores is really not that much different than our competitors. So what the competitor is, that extra 70% in cost that our competitors are having franchisees spend to achieve this build out is not really producing much more of a return on investment, right? So it's not producing 70% more revenue for them. Right.
And we know basically what a Houndstown should gross in how much money. It's
a numbers game.
It's a numbers game, but it's not a multi-million-dollar business. It's not like a restaurant or where I don't know the right analogy, but it's a very simple, again, simplicity. There's no inventory. We know how many dogs.
There's no large equipment. There's no vendor relationships.
Right. There's no complicated equipment. There's no ovens. There's no chairs. There's no furnishing. So it's a very straightforward thing. So we know how much a unit should produce an income, understanding the market and the competitiveness of the market. So obviously, like you said, isn't it easier to keep your build-out cost as low as possible? Sometimes we have no control over it. Cost of material and labor goes up and changes in different parts of the country, but we try to tweak it, keep it as simple as possible. We don't throw franchisees money away unnecessarily.
Right. So we view our franchisees obviously as our business partners, and our goal, we go out of our way to make sure that their costs for build out are as absolutely low as possible. And we get in there with them, we get in the dirt with them, and we do things like review estimates from contractors and take things out and go and give them feedback like, you don't need to spend $5,000 on demo. We really provide detailed management of the process so that by the time the franchisee opens their door, they have spent as reasonable amount of money as possible. So that the concept is that they're going to make their money back quicker. They're going to be happier franchisees, and they're going to help us grow our system more organically. We don't nickel and dime our franchisees, just like we don't nickel and dime our customers.
Exactly. Thank you. That's right. That's very important. We have a very open, transparent. By the way, franchising by its nature is very transparent. This isn't like selling a timeshare or a used car. You get to see everything, numbers. We have something called validation calls where potential franchisees calls people already in the system when we have no control of them. They'll tell you whether it's good, bad, the ugly. And there should be some ugly. Nothing's perfect.
Of course. There are challenges to, we're a service business. There are challenges to running a service business.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, the point is that the good outweighs the bad, for the vast majority of aspects of our business. And it's a really fun business. A lot of people come and are attracted to it because they want to interact with dogs all day, which of course you get to do, but there are other elements to running a successful business that franchisees need to be qualified for.
Right. So again, using words that are connected to one another, we look for passionate people. You don't have to know. I prefer you don't know one end of a dog from the other, which end bites and which end poop comes out of. I can teach people that. So it's not a business that requires knowledge of dogs at all. But we want passionate people. All of our employees, all of our franchisees, they're vetted for their passion, not for their knowledge, actually. Sometimes their knowledge is also a disqualifier. Their knowledge of dogs is almost always a disqualifier for us, meaning if they have a very big background in dog behavior or something. Because what we do is so simple and counterintuitive, it's usually a disqualifier. So passion. Our employees are passionate. Our franchisees are passionate. Our brand director is passionate. Corey Packer, passionate man.
Okay. Yes. So we understand that.
I went off.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course, passion is important, but skill. There are certain skills that
absolutely.
franchisees need to come to the table with, which are really customer service. And employee hiring and management. And if you have those two skills, those are really, you're in good shape. We focus very heavily on teaching all of the rest, all of the dog management and training. Our initial training is almost entirely focused on teaching people how to think about dogs differently, the Houndstown way. And I think we just have a really unique combination of factors that make us probably the best pet care system out there.
Right. So yes. So I'll give you an offhanded compliment. So we have a nice combination. Your human brain, although sometimes recalcitrant and truculent, but your passion. You're absolutely right. Passion in and of itself is zero. Passion without knowledge is nothing. So I totally agree with that. But I have the dog brain. It's very simple. High school dropout. I see things from 18 inches off the ground and up. And you have all of the ability to organize. And so we surround ourselves with passionate people, passionate with knowledge. Go ahead. Jackie's rolling her eyes.
Well, I know how many.
But I think that's a great. But that's the combination that makes us successful. That's the secret sauce. It's simple. We have one of the most robust training systems in the industry. I don't say that. Ask anybody about it. So that's the point. We take this. This is our lives. I didn't retire from Wall Street and decide to open up a doggy daycare. This is what I've been doing my entire life.
Right. And we've been doing it for 20 years. And of course, we've tweaked our business model over that 20 years. And, you know, franchisees that come into the system are benefiting not only from our knowledge of the positive things about our system, but also the things that we've learned to change, you know. So we've been tweaking our model for 20 years. So, you know, that's the benefit. You know, of course, another benefit to joining a franchise system. And I think, you know, if we're talking about 5 differentiators, it's, you know, it's your background, our build out costs, our low point of entry, you know, the fact that we know dogs, we know and understand dogs. Right. And that's, you know, that is at the heart of
right. And ironically, very few of our competitors, they know business.
They know business,
but they don't know anything about the dogs. They
right.
know very little about the dogs. And then they're anthropomorphizing them. And that's why they're charging people to read books to them right. and rub their bellies and all this kind of.
And of course, the fifth one is that we don't breed discriminate. And that's a very important value to us. So
right. So obviously, breed discrimination to me is as ignorant as human racism. It really is. I don't minimize it. I have very intelligent people, nurses, doctors, who think pit bulls are the most dangerous creatures on earth, and they really believe that. Of course, I always tell people, pit bull dogs, Rottweilers, they do dangerous things, but it's because of humans' failure to socialize them properly. So I know.
So at Houndstown, we provide that opportunity to every dog, of course, assuming that they come in and they pass our temperament evaluation.
Of course, they have to pass a temperament evaluation because sometimes people haven't socialized their dogs properly. Right. But a well-socialized dog, and that's another reason to come to Houndstown soon. You'll very rarely see a dog that's come to Houndstown since he was 3 or 4 months old to have any kind of obesity or physical problems or socialization problems.
Right. And I think, you know, the need for reliable and trustworthy pet care is only growing in much higher demand than it ever was. So I think we're in a unique position to be able to grow our brand really across the country, eventually, potentially across the world.
The world?
Yeah.
All right, Jackie.
There's doggies in other countries that need us.
You know, I'm in the last. Okay, I'm there. Okay, I'm with you. Around the world. Okay,
yeah,
maybe Mars. Maybe we'll have the first Houndstown doggy.
Why not?
In the universe, we'll have the happiest dogs in the universe.
Yeah, I like that. We better trademark that. All right, we gotta go.
Yeah, we have to go, Jackie.
All right, so let's wrap this up.
Wrap it up. Tell everybody what you said. YouTube, this tube, that tube. Fallopian tube. What tubes do they watch this show on?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Check us out on Facebook on the Dish on Dogs podcast. To learn more about franchising, visit us at houndstownfranchise.com. All of our episodes are also available on our YouTube channel, Houndstown USA, and all the traditional podcast platforms. We'll see everybody next time. Thanks for watching.
Okay.